Yo, what's up guys? It's your boy UnEeVeN, and today we're going to be doing a very highly requested video, which is going to be a mix of a settings video and a kind of guide to how to find your own personal sensitivities. Like and comment if you want to see different kinds of videos and tips and tricks on how I became a professional PUBG mobile player. Thank you. We're going to start off with my personal settings. These are the ones that I use for tournament and online play. In the basics tabs, we don't have anything too particular. I do have peek and open scope enabled, which means that when I press my lean button, it automatically opens up my scope for me. Some pros find it useful, others don't. I personally like it because it's just one less finger to use, and I don't have to tap the scope in every time. And then as soon as I want to undo my scope, all I have to do is press the lean again. It just limits the amount of buttons used. Obviously my scope mode is on tap, which means one tap to scope in, one tap to scope off. I don't like the hold or mix options. I do have gyroscope for only the scope on, so I can control the recoil and I can use it to help aim a little bit. I do like to have my jump and climb separate so that in certain scenarios when I need to jump over fences instead of climb over them, I can be able to do that. First person perspective camera view is 90. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure that's basic. That's about it for the basics tab. In the graphics tab, this is the norm for competitive players. You want to have your FPS on extreme to have the highest, just be on the even playing field with everybody. Be on 60 FPS. It improves your gameplay by a ton. You really want to, if your device can't handle it, you want to try and get a device that can handle the extreme FPS, or else you won't be able to get 60 FPS and it'll be a huge disadvantage. I run my graphics on smooth personally for the battery life, and it heats up your battery less, and it allows you to play the game for longer amounts of time before your device starts struggling, essentially. Style, now I've heard a lot of pros do a lot of different things. I personally like colorful because I think it does the contrast very well, and it makes things pop out. So I can see snakes in the grass, or I can see people in the distance a lot clearer. Because I am using the Vivo Nex 3, which is a full screen notch device, I do want to have the notched things in my graphics so that I can touch all parts of the screen. If it's on normal, there are certain parts of the screens that act as like dead zones. So just make sure you know exactly what kind of device you have and what kind of screen you want along with it. And obviously auto adjust graphics, I have that turned off. This is probably the most important part. This is my layout. As you can see, I use a fairly basic layout. Most things aren't moved. I do have, I don't know if you can see, I'll make it less transparent. Up here are my shoot buttons. So I am a 4-finger claw player. So having an isolated shoot button is extremely beneficial, which allows me to both move down here, shoot up here with a different finger, and aim over to the right with my right thumb all at the same time. If you're not a claw player, I highly recommend you become one. It's just extremely advantageous and allows you to do multiple things at once, which you otherwise couldn't. Leans are slightly different than the norm, I'd say, for North American pros. I do actually lean with my thumbs, with my right thumb, so I both aim, crouch, prone, jump, vault, switch scope, lean, and do all this stuff with my right thumb. So my right thumb is very heavily used. Don't copy my layout if you can't do as much things with your right thumbs. Make sure you do what's comfortable for yourself. Vehicle settings, I have music disabled. I don't enjoy that. I use this one. Okay, sensitivity. So my sensitivity is actually the default medium with just a tiny few changes. I'm a person that, just over time, I get used to sensitivities fairly easily. So I just kept it with the game's default, and that's what ended up working for me. And I'll teach you later in this video how exactly you get used to new different sensitivities. So everything is default right here. There's nothing new. I'll show you guys the only thing that I did tweak a tiny bit. So even my gyroscope settings are actually the default settings once you switch it to medium, which for the NAC I know is extremely low. The norm is much higher. So which just means I have to move my device a lot more for it to be as effective. But that's just what I've personally gotten used to, and it works for me. The only thing I tweaked right here is the 4X ACOG scope and VSS. I thought the 4X had a bit more jump, and it was the only noticeable one that I felt unnatural. So I just tweaked it just a little bit more to have a little bit more control and to, you know, need less of a movement with my phone. I have no auto pickup enabled. I like to do everything so that I can be selective and I don't accidentally pick up the wrong stuff. It's not the most efficient thing. I should probably start enabling the auto pickup things, but it's been working out not bad. For the scopes, there's not a whole lot to this page. You should probably have the quick scope enabled, unless you can go in your inventory and switch it fast enough, which is what I used to do. But you know, it's a good tool for certain situations. I chose the blue one, the blue color for all of these scopes for no particular reason. It's the Cloud9 colors, and you know, it stands out. It seems to stand out against the environment a little bit better than, like, say, the yellow. Or maybe the lighter colors. So it's definitely a good color. Go ahead and use it. For the red dot, I use this one right here, the 3 bars. I don't know why. I swapped to it, and then, you know, the red dot now, when I switch back to the normal red dot, it seems too jumpy for me. I could probably get used to it if I put in a little bit of time, but that's just what I like, and it doesn't, you know, give any disadvantages, so I keep it. So I use the high SFX quality, not the ultra, because the ultra was just implemented in this latest patch, or a few patches ago, very recently, and it changed all of the directional soundings. It changed the sounds of the guns, the footsteps, etc. And I had PMCO coming right up, so I didn't want to put in the time to adapt to the new audio. It's not that different, I realized, but I still didn't just want to mess with it because, you know, the old one works for me, and I can tell exactly where a person is just from my audio. So I should probably get used to the ultra. There's probably some advantages. I haven't really looked into it, but and then that's it. All right, so now to move on to the tips and tricks portion of, you know, how exactly to find your own personal sensitivity. These are the tricks that I personally use to adapt, because, you know, when going from tournament to tournament, you'll be using different phones with different kinds of sensitivities, and so this is the process that I undertake. So as you can see right here, what I'm doing is I'm just tracking practicing tracking the signs. Now this is a very easy and, like, basic exercise, and you should most definitely be able to do it with any sensitivity, but if you're completely unable to do that, you know, that's a good sign that you should probably change your sensitivity. Right here, even though I'm not completely used to this new phone, I'm able to do it fairly well. You know, there's a little bit of error tracing, just because of the general floatiness and airiness of the aim on Android that I'm not typically used to. The next step after that, what you're gonna do is you're gonna want to practice just flicking in between the targets. Now this is a good indicator of whether or not you need to adjust your aim or you know, just how you play the game. So because I'm used to the iPhone, which is a lot lower sensitivity, a lot more accurate movements, when I flick between the targets, you know, you see me overshoot a little bit. Now typically what that means is that either your sensitivity is too high or you're just flicking too hard. Right? There's 2 ways to go about it. You can either adjust your sensitivity or try to get used to it. And this is just always going to happen when you're switching from iPhone to Android, just simply because the Android screen works like that. It overshoots. It has a lot floatier aim than the iPhone, and that's something that I have to get used to on stage. What I typically do just to warm up my day is I start aiming to the different people in the map, you know, in the training mode with me. This isn't super beneficial, and there's no auto aim, so it's not exactly how it's going to be in game. It's going to be a little bit harder. But I just aim towards them, and just practice flicking around a little bit, just to get comfortable with my screen. Because, you know, sometimes when you wake up in the morning, you just got to get your fingers a little bit warm and stuff. And this is also a really good way to practice your spraying, as you can see, and your gyroscope sensitivities. This one's very simple. You know, there's only one way to practice gyroscope, and it's just doing it. Practice shooting at random things across the map at varying distances. And if your spray isn't compact enough, you pull down harder. And if your spray is going too far down, you pull down less. You know, it's just a feel to it. And that's all there is to it, really. And then this is the last exercise I like to do in training mode. And it's just, you can do this with any scope to get used to the specific scope sensitivity. As you can see, I'm just aiming down in the middle and waiting for the training things to pop up and then flicking to them as best as I can. This helps you get adjusted to a specific type of scope sensitivities. Right here I'm using the 6x, but this really just can apply to any of them. So it's decent, just to really get used to that specific scope. And make sure you hit your shots in the long distance. Last but not least, you know, the best way to practice your sensitivity is going into those TDM modes and practicing on real people. It's a lot better, obviously, because they're shooting back at you. You've got the auto aim just like in a regular game, and you can play around the angles just like in a regular game. And it's a really good way to practice your tracking, your flicking, etc. And that's all there is to it. You know, put in the time in the training rooms and the TDM's modes. I do personally around 2 to 3 hours a day of TDM, just because I like to do it when I wake up in the morning to get my fingers warm, and then as well around an hour before scrims or tournaments to make sure that, you know, I'm still nice and loose and ready for anything. That's it for me. Make sure to leave a like if you like the video, and a comment what kind of video you want to see next. You know, all my video ideas are from the comments, and which one's got the most comments and which one's got the most likes. So put it down there and I might just do a video on it. I'll be going to DreamHack Atlanta this weekend, performing in the ESL Mobile Open Season 3. So there will be a vlog coming out shortly for that. Thank you guys for watching.